Goldilocks at 708-889-5600.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Steve Daniels is a member of the Tribune editorial board, apparently. Don't know. And, occasionally the Tribune editorial board stumbles into at least half of an insight. And so we have that here, a conversation that he had with Paris Schutz on Fox about all these stalled projects in the Fulton Market neighborhood. Seemingly the one neighborhood, West Loop, that is burgeoning because it's got a lot of young people and upwardly mobile professionals, and they bought condos or their parents bought one for them, and they're going out to eat at restaurants and bars and all that jazz like, we used to do when the city was thriving in many, many neighborhoods. So why the projects that were green-lighted, why are they stalling? Well, I know it's probably Nixon's fault and Trump's fault and the fault of systemic racism and the white man and transphobia and the lack of a corporate head tax and lack of a graduated state income tax and lack of proper funding for CPS so that they can enjoy travels to Eastern Europe and the dark continent to learn best practices about how to educate the kids to deliver on that promise of an enriching, fulfilling education, which they're doing a bang-up job at providing. But Steve Daniels now, Tribune Ed Board. So this is the left talking to the left, which is usually the conversation we have in Chicago.
It was 21 projects that are slated, got the green light, and they just can't get off the ground.
By our count, yeah. Well, what we understand is it's really, there's a number of reasons that developments have struggled. I mean, one of the things, interest rates, financials that people are familiar with, but that's not what's really holding in the neighborhood back. It is just a crisis of confidence on the part of people who invest in these projects, and we're talking about equity investors in real estate projects.
So it's not just your old banks and institutions. They're getting equity.
These are institutional investors that specialize in real estate financing. The banks will follow along as you get the equity. And so the problem these developers are having is they're having trouble getting the equity investments. Which a greater portion of what you need to finance these things is now coming from equity because banks have cut back on how much they're willing to lend and percentage-wise to get a project built.
So they're not happy with the Johnson administration and his handling of city finances?
Yeah, I mean, it's just concern about the city's future. Like, what if we do a pro forma based on these financials and these taxes, and then 3 or 4 years, 5 years down the line, we look to exit the investment and make our money back? What are the taxes going to be then? And right now, they have no way of predicting that and basically assume it's going to be bad, and whatever pro forma we wrote back 5 years ago is going to be obsolete, and essentially this was not an investment worth making.
So is it property taxes they're most concerned about, even though the mayor is not proposing a hike in property taxes? But given the structural problems of the city, it would seem to be that at some point they're going to have to go up.
Right. Property taxes is a big one for sure for a real estate development. The head tax that the mayor has proposed on corporations doesn't directly affect apartment buildings, but does make you worry about the future economy of the city. So and then whatever else would they come up with? I mean, if these things don't work.
The social media tax.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the
just
breathing tax.
Too much uncertainty. Business of all kinds, whether real estate investment or just selling you widgets, what they want is some kind of predictability. And you're never going to get complete predictability in any world, including the business world, but you want some line of sight into what the future holds. And Chicago, under this mayor, doesn't give these guys enough of that.
Oh, but I thought the uncertainty is part of the fun, the guessing game, and then, to help deal with the uncertainty, then you just play the insider rent-seeking game and get your special deal, and then a lot of that uncertainty goes away if you're a preferred person or a contractor or a vendor. Boy, I'll tell you what, when Paris Schutz is lampooning the tax and spend culture in Chicago and Illinois, saying the tax on breathing, when you've lost Paris Schutz, how about that? And by the way, that uncertainty is not limited to BJ. It also includes JB, which I know the Chicago Political Press Corps dutifully tries to avoid, but substantively you cannot if you're being honest. For more on this and other Illinois policy-related matters, Paul Vallas, Senior Policy Advisor at Illinois Policy Institute, writes weekly for the Chicago Contrarian, former CEO of CPS and candidate for mayor, of course. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So apparently things are a little opaque for the real estate developers and other business interests that may or may not want to stay or do deals in Chicago.
Well, look, why would anybody want to do a deal in Chicago, for that matter, Illinois? Illinois now ranks as number one in terms of combined taxes and fees. We're number one. In fact, we're not only ahead of all the 50 states, but we're ahead of the District of Columbia. So at the the Pritzker has raised taxes and fees 55 times since taking office in 2019. That generates about over $7 billion a year, and that's despite having squandered $14 billion in COVID money. And of course, the city. Taxes on commercial property in the city of Chicago are the highest in the nation, and of course, now the mayor wants to impose a head tax, regardless of what type of income, whether or not the businesses are even generating a profit. And of course, Chicago already has the highest cloud tax, which is a tax on computer services, the use of computers, etc. It's at, I think, 11%. He wants to raise it to 14%. So this is absolute madness. So you wonder why businesses aren't investing, or why 1.6 million people have left the state since 20,000, and it has significantly accelerated since Pritzker took office. Those are the reasons. Those, and of course, terrible schools, which forces people, if they have the means, to basically pay an exorbitant amount of money to privately educate their children.
Well, but I saw that BLM Brandon, too. I mean, he's having problems finding a constituency. He was at the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, a conference that they hosted. I think it was here in Chicago. I don't even think he needed to go to Finland for it, which was nice. National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, which I believe is an offshoot of the National Confederation Against Dog Molesters and Public Defecation. Anyway, he tried to speak at his, appointed time, and then this happened.
So, family, I introduce to you all Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Give it up for Mayor Brandon Johnson. Yeah.
Thank you.
Then they stormed the stage.
Thank you all very much.
And they wouldn't let him speak.
Let the mayor speak. Let the mayor speak. Let the mayor speak. Let the mayor speak. Let the mayor speak. Let the mayor speak. Let the mayor
speak. So, I mean, when you're not getting a chance, you're getting shouted down. You're Brandon Johnson, and you're getting shouted down at the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression when you're just about to complain against Trump, complain about Trump, and they won't even let you do that. That's a bad position.
Yeah, well, there was footage all over social media of one speaker after another, and talking about a delusional deranged group. I mean, it was like bizarro world. It was the most, it was the strangest thing you ever saw. But the mayor would have just given what has essentially been his campaign speech, which seems to be his response to everything. And let me point out that I was watching on social media because the Chicago Teachers Union is constantly posting interviews with their individual members, and incidentally, teachers, most of whom look like they are totally unfit to teach children, by the way. So they're definitely not selecting the individuals out of central casting. But then they're always like paraphrasing the mayor. But there was the mayor again, really saying that this is it's a choice. His budget is a choice between a tax between taxing working people and taxing corporations and the rich. The bottom line is this is an extremely regressive budget, both from a programmatic side and a tax side, because what is he taxing? I mean, he's taxing the use of technology, computer work, computer services. He's imposing a head tax on the number of business employees. And, of course, he's raising this congestion tax. This is all a tax on working people. So it's just BS. But it's amazing the way the media doesn't challenge him on his rhetoric because he's really getting away with murder.
Where were those, when CTU was interviewing their members, were those interviews done in Beaver Creek or Lake Tahoe?
I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, I'll tell you, even the story, there's sometimes the story about, about the junkets, right? And about the doubling of the money spent on going to exotic foreign places. Obviously, within the United States, the favorite destination was, of course, Las Vegas. But
Sure.
What was missing from that story was that this dramatic increase in travel occurred during COVID when schools were shut down, if you remember. So they were going to exotic places. Maybe that's why they weren't meeting in Illinois and having their conferences, because you had this, because of Pritzker's 41 resolutions that effectively shut down the economy.
They travel to keep their skills sharp. This was all professional development, and it shows because now they've come back and year after year since COVID, they're getting the 99% excellent ratings from each other in terms of the classroom performance.
Well, what they've done is they've returned to social promotion. But let me point out that during that period that schools were shut down, during the 2 years that the 78 straight weeks of schools being shut down straddled, there are almost 900 children, school-age children who were shot in the city of Chicago. Over 900 and well over 100 who died. In fact, this year alone, I think the number of children who have been shot I think it's approaching 154 wounded, and I believe it's 44 murdered. So while they were out doing their junkets during COVID, the 300,000 plus kids who were at home for 78 consecutive weeks, many of those kids were the victims of violent crimes, and close to 8 to 9% of those individuals arrested for murder by the Chicago Police Department during that period, and the crime lab reported this, were actually out-of-school youth, and well over 50% of the individuals who carjacked were out-of-school youth. So while they were whining and dining, there was a record increase in violence against and violent acts by out-of-school age youth.
Well, that's a manufactured crisis. Juliana Stratton told me that, and and crime is down, and that's all you need to know. But speaking of crime, this happened in Oak Park yesterday, outside of Senate President Don Harmon's district office.
An armed robbery outside Illinois State Senator Don Harmon's office. It happened Friday evening at Harmon's office on North Avenue in Oak Park. According to court records, Scott Loafer pointed a knife and took a woman's cell phone. He's charged with armed robbery. Officials say the incident does not appear to have been politically motivated.
Friday evening, rather, not yesterday. But boy, Don Harmon's staffer robbed at knife point outside of his office. I mean, I don't want that to happen to anyone, obviously, so that's a terrible thing. But there is something rather mugged by reality about it, given Don Harmon and the policies on public safety that he's advanced, just like these other Chicago Democrats.
Well, Dan, there was a poll. This was the second poll that I've seen in recent years. And of those Illinois residents who are still here, who have not moved, 50%, almost 50% said they would if they had the means. And they cited, number one, first of all, the taxes and fees, just the cost of living in a state like Illinois. And then, of course, that was followed a distant second and third by crime in schools and the corruption. So at the end of the day, I mean, when half the state is prepared to leave, if they only have the means, you're in real trouble. But I guess that's the record that Pritzker is going to bring as he competes with Gavin Newsom. Maybe I used to think Newsom was the worst governor in the nation, but I'm beginning to think that JB may take that top prize. But that's basically, those are, I guess, the Democratic front runners. So it's just an absolute disaster, and people are voting for their feet. And I want to make one more point really, really quick. The exodus of 1.6 million, let's face it, sanctuary city, sanctuary state policies have been designed to blunt the exodus, the loss of population, for all those obvious political reasons. But the income differential between those people leaving the state and those people coming to the state is almost $40,000, which means we're not only losing taxable income, which forces us, of course, the Democrats, to then raise taxes because, they're not going to cut government. But the vast majority of those individuals who are coming to the state are actually then in need of public assistance, so it's costing us even more. So at the end of the day, it's an absolute disaster. But Pritzker continues to get a free ride. Maybe Johnson less so, but at the end of the day, let's face it, they're really not being subjected to the type of scrutiny for their rhetoric and for their lives that candidates might have, or that political leaders might have been subjected to 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Paul Vallas, Senior Policy Advisor to Illinois Policy Institute, writes weekly for the Chicago Contrarian, former CEO of CPS and mayoral candidate, of course. Paul, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Have a great week.
You too. And you join us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
The biggest time of the year for stores is during the Christmas season. And if you deal in collector coins, the main source for inventory is from people like you. We want to have our showcases fully stocked before Christmas. Last Christmas, gold was the highest ever